You are live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Excess Astrology, where three astrologers gather once a week to talk about the sky, what's going on, how we can use it to our best advantage, because it is messages from above to give us guidance, and to look at your charts. My name is Ann Ortley. I'm an astrologer in Florida, St. Petersburg, and I am joined by my compadre and dear friend, Heather.
Hello, this is Heather Rowan Robbins speaking to you from Western Montana, and where it is dry but cold.
What's your temperature today, Miss Heather?
It's 20. It's not bad at all. Minnesota is minus 20 or heading into that. And, they were saying, someone pointed out, ICE is making the same mistake that um, the Nazis did when they invaded Russia. You don't invade a cold country in the wintertime because they know how to do it.
Right. They know how to do cold. Right.
They know how to do cold.
And we are not going to be joined by Mark today. He has another meeting, so he's off doing something else. But he'll be
sends
back.
His love. Yeah,
sends his love. But it's going to be Heather and I, and you know how we get when we're together. We have trouble, going. Oh, Mark, talk. So now it's
always is pithy, so we wanted to do that.
Yeah, it's our Virgo sons like have a little confab.
Yes.
All right. So when we're looking at the aspects today, we are in really dicey times, folks, as you know.
We are.
So I am actually saying, Heather, the eclipses are coming already, even though we're a month out, because Pallas Athena there at 29 Aquarius is where the degree of the eclipse is. And so when I looked at the new moon chart for Sunday, I went, oh, eclipses are starting already. Mm-hmm. Wow. And so the eclipse is going to be at the last degrees of Aquarius on February 17th. And we know when we're in eclipse season, it is to the North Node. So it's calling us forward to our path. But it also is wild and crazy times. And all of the planets just finished a bunch of aspects in Capricorn. And now which they were on in the new moon. And now they've shifted into Aquarius, where they're detached, a little cold, and very, very clear. And Pallas Athena at the anaretic degree, she's the warrior goddess. She ruled Athens, and she was born of her father's head. He had a headache, and they whacked him and out. Well, he fooled around in the wife. There's a whole story. But anyway, he whacked her on the head. She pops out. So she's detached. And she loves being in Aquarius. And she also is very happy in Libra because she's all about balance. She rules Athens, the Acropolis. And interestingly, Uranus is on Algol, the fixed star of beheading. And Pallas Athena had an origin story with Medusa, because she walked into her temple, and it's on the top in Athens. It's the Acropolis in Athens is her temple. She walks in and she sees sex happening on her floor. And it's Neptune and Medusa, but Medusa's being raped. She didn't know that was what was happening. So she lightning bolts, because what are you doing having sex in my temple? He's fine because he's a god, but Medusa gets turned into a snake-headed goddess. And she wanders the world, and everybody that looks at her turns to stone. Pallas Athena feels bad because she reacted emotionally by turning her into a snake-headed god, a gorgon. And so she sent Perseus with her shield and her sword and said to him, don't look at her because you're going to turn into stone, but use my shield and look at my shield and cut her head off and bring it to me. What a job, right? So Perseus is up in the heavens, and he's holding Medusa's head. And I think it's either 64 hours or 68 hours, the star blinks. It's a blinking star. So it's Medusa's eye blinking on Algol. And so it's called beheading because he cut her head off, but it's a blinking eye. And so a bunch of adventures before he got her back to Athena. But when he got her to Athena, she took the head and put it in her sword or in her shield, to remind herself not to act emotionally, but to act with logic. So she carried Medusa forward in her life for the rest of her life. Obviously, she's a goddess, so she's still around somewhere carrying Athena, but to remind herself not to do it. So Pallas Athena and Medusa are square each other. Algol is square each other. So we're having a beheading energy that's very strong in the sky. Plus, we've had Pluto and the sun, and yesterday Mercury on Icarus, which is another nasty little mythology, where he was told, don't go too high or don't go too low. If you go too low, the water will be on your feathers and you'll fall in the sea. If you go too high, the sun will melt the wax and you'll fall to the sea and drown. So we have Mercury, Sun, and Pluto on Icarus. Yesterday was Mercury, so there was a speech that looked like a fall to the ground.
There sure was.
And then the Sun Pluto is there for this, like, be careful what you're, the hubris. Don't be doing the hubris. So it's a very dicey sky is the way I'm looking at it. And then today, or tomorrow, the moon goes into Aries out of the suffering of Pisces. Actually, this is for tomorrow.
Yeah, this is for tomorrow.
So the moon's in Aries, and moon in Aries is very feisty, and it's going to talk to all the Aquarian planets, which just last week were in Capricorn. Excuse my French, bitching and moaning, because, it's so hard. Oh. Now they're in Aquarius. They're like, better do something, take action, go fly, get it done. And they're very impulsive. So I'm looking at this and going, oh, wow, this is going to be a wild weekend and a wild weekend. And
the solar flares are just off the charts.
Yeah.
Biggest solar flares in a couple of decades. And that always amps the volume.
Yeah.
I've been watching, first all those planets in Capricorn. When they went into Aquarius, they each one tagged Pluto on the way through. And today, it was the Sun-Pluto conjunction. Next Wednesday, it's the Mars-Pluto conjunction. And those are very muscular aspects that want to make things happen. And when I've been watching, the conversation around Davos and Greenland. And
Iceland. Don't forget Iceland. I want a big island. It's Iceland. It's Greenland.
Oh God! Which he said Iceland 4 times.
I know.
And
what do you really want? You want both? You're a Gemini. You want both.
He just doesn't know what
both of those islands.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
But that he was defeated in his Mars. Pluto, Uranus is squaring his Mars this week. So he's been last week and this week he's been acting out. He's been trying desperately to make everybody look everywhere but at him. But that lineup in Aquarius, one of the things they talked about in some of the breakdowns on what happened in Europe, the minute he said, I'm going to take it over by force, all the European countries sent their army over to Greenland, to Iceland, to Greenland, and to do military exercises to prove that they were working together. Now, that's what I'm seeing, is that lineup of planets working together to make things, to cooperate. So
that's my incoming. Yeah.
Okay. So
I am having people arriving from the airport and they just buzzed to come in. So Heather's going to continue.
I'll take it from here.
I'll be back. I'll be back next week. Goodbye, everybody. Remember, crazy. It's crazy. We're in the eclipse season.
And what do you want? What should they do? How should they handle that? Give them one last bomb.
What they want to do is recognize they need to break up with the people that they don't want to be with anymore. It's time to take action. No more whining and complaining. You have to get rid of the people that are draining you. You have to make the changes you've been talking about, but you haven't done yet. And if you do that, it will be good. If you don't do that, Saturn ain't fooling around anymore. Neptune's going into Aries. Uranus is going direct. It's like gonna be mean. So do it now while you can out without a drama.
And one of the comments said, "You look lovely in red." So I'll let you go. Take care.
I'm turning into a Sag rising.
Take care.
I'm out of here. Bye, everybody. Sorry about that.
And so we're going to talk about tomorrow is a huge change, as or this will be actually on Monday, when Neptune heads into Aries. And, it's got a 165-year cycle. It was in Aries briefly last summer, and we saw that tension arising. Now, Neptune talks about what we get addicted to, what we love, what excites us, what works for us. And that lineup of planets it's the day before the Mars-Pluto conjunction. And it is a pretty militant era. I think we're going to really face over the next 13, 14 years while Neptune is in Aries. It can both revive us, it can help us start over again, it can feel good about that freshness, but it is also about, might makes right. We saw the old school. That's one of the things that this president and his cabinet have been talking about. Like, if we got the muscles, we can do it. Might makes right, which is not true, but we'll be called on it. It is also that we value that machismo, that some people value that machismo of what Hegeseth has been acting out, but it points out that that's not true positive Aries. Positive Aries, Neptune in Aries will be valuing people who take action, who want to be heroes, who want to protect the world, who want to, reach for the world and make good things happen. So we're going to watch that. There's an interesting test that the psychologists in New Zealand recently did, trying to figure out what is toxic masculinity and how many people have the truly toxic side. They said good 35% of the men in their country have no signs of toxic masculinity. Most of them are somewhere in the middle, and there's about 3% that are full on the worst, and they define how that is. That was hopeful proportions. We'll see what the rest of the world. But the idea that of masculinity versus toxic masculinity in every male and female, in everybody who is channeling their Mars. So we talked about Hegeseth, and that in what I want to point out here is right now, whereas Neptune is at that very last end of the very last degree of Pisces, because it goes into Aries on Monday. This is the chart of America. We think of it as the Mythic America chart. It's July 4th in the afternoon in Philadelphia, about the time that everybody was supposed to sign. And the aspects to it, there are many different charts for America. They all work for some aspect. I find this one works for the aspects for how we interact with the world. It's kind of Mythic America. And this puts that at 2 degrees of Aries, where Saturn and Neptune came up to last summer. Then they retrograded back and will go over that point, over the IC, over the grounding point, over the tap root, the foundation of our country. Now, the last time Neptune was here was at exactly the degree that it's going to be this weekend, was in April of 1861, as the Civil War began. That within 24 hours, Neptune went into Aries. And so we're right at that key point. Back then, also, Jupiter was in Leo, which, that's once every 12 years, but Jupiter is heading into Leo later on this year. Uranus was conjunct Mars right on our descendant. It was a Uranus return for our country. That's roughly every 84 years. Uranus is going to be heading that way and will be there in a year or two. So we've got several planets, and that changes how we relate to the world, how we relate to one another, how we relate to all the partnerships. When these two, Saturn and Neptune, go into Aries, they also square our Sun, our Venus-Jupiter conjunction, the goodwill in our 7th house, the goodwill that we have with the rest of the world. That is being reorganized. It made very clear that trust has been blown. But what helped, and we saw this with his lineup in Aquarius, and what's helping in Minneapolis, what's helping in Europe on the NATO conferences, was people working together. That the one way to handle the bully is to point out everybody else is working together, and you are choosing to, try to break up NATO. You're trying to attack people. But when everybody's watching, everybody's there together, that Aquarius is going to be the gift. The problem with it is Aquarius talks about applying a theory, trying to force everybody into the same theory. And, without, the question is that theory grounded? We say the gift, every planet, every aspect, every sign has a positive side and a challenging side. And I see Aquarius, if it starts off with authentic experience and works its way up into, like I have an experience, I see what's really going on. I've done the research. This is what's happening. My theory on what's happening because of that is, let me test that out and see how that fits. Let me take that and try that out in the world. So I develop a theory from real experience. That's the gift of Aquarius, that ability to kind of get a little distance and see the bigger patterns and see how it plays out and how everybody works together on a subject. To start off with, I have memorized the rule book. This is how I think it should be. My theory on what I should be feeling is, and people who like, the president who says I shouldn't have lost the election, so I'm going to cram my experience into that, and rather than start with an authentic experience and work out. So we're going to watch for both of those. Are we starting off with a theory that doesn't want to look at the facts, or do we want to start with authentic experience and come to understand and get a perspective on that, and how do we work together to make good things happen? That's going to be that Aquarian lineup now, but also all the time that Pluto is in Aquarius, and with Neptune and Saturn going into Aries soon. So I think we're just going to keep an eye on that over time. Now, I've got a couple of people here who asked some questions. Now, this person, Young, asked about they've always been drawn to the constellation Orion. And Orion, if you were to drop it down, it's not right on the zodiacal line, but if you were to drop it down, it's actually quite a 20 degrees of a sign. It would land on their north node down here around Gemini, and they've always been drawn to it. What does it mean that they're drawn to it? Now, Orion is 3 major stars that are not related to each other except in their perspective from here. They're in 3 different star systems, but we see them all in a line. And again, that's how we project our energy out into the world. I have strong feelings on that we define our signs by what the time of the year and how the earth is moving in relationship to the stars. The stars may keep moving because they do, but how we see them is through our experience of that sign of that time here on earth. So I still work by Western astrology, not by sidereal. But I don't say it's wrong. I just say it doesn't work for me. So Young was born with with Virgo planets oppose that moon in Pisces, and that moon in Pisces is so drawn to experience, drawn to it's so sensitive. It soaks up the psychic phenomenon of the surroundings. That Jupiter-Uranus conjunction up there in the 9th house can love astrology. Jupiter can what expands you. It's in the house of what educates you, what grows. And Uranus is what we associate with change and excitement and unusualness, but also the stars and astrology and the transformative process of psychotherapy. So we see that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction up there at the top of the chart. It's going well and moving and forth, but you can see that being drawn to that distant place, that feeling part of a constellation out there. What it means for you is probably valid. I'm not going to tell you it's not. And I would say that feeling like you have a home in the stars allows you to get some distance when feeling overwhelmed by sensitivity or when you're really hard on yourself, as a Virgo lineup can be, as one who has one. So I think that that's what we're seeing with your beautiful lineup of planets there. Yes, and Aquarius can leave. Someone pointed out it's somebody said, the minute someone talks about toxic masculinity, it's about Hegeseth. Absolutely. He is a prime example of it with very little of the redeeming masculine qualities, but there are plenty of others. And that Aquarius can lead to mob mentality. And exactly, that's one of the things that worries me. The good thing is all working together. The bad thing can be all mobbing on the same person at the same time. So we want to keep an eye on the purpose of it. Is it for the benefit of all sentient beings, or is it for revenge? So the other question we had was from Michael. And Michael just said, what do you think of my chart? What's going on to us on this? Now, this Michael, born in France, had some really tricky transits over the last couple of years. As Pluto, they have a Moon-Mercury conjunction, and that Moon-Mercury conjunction had Pluto sitting on it for a very long time and is now off. And so to get some deep breath, this chart is really good at making things happen. It's a highly executive function chart. We have loaded cardinal planets, and the cardinal planets, the ones who help us um, begin begin a season, are the people who get the party started. They get things moving. There's a problem, they want to fix it. And so this chart's been kind of working really hard at handling, fixing the problems around. But it has not been easy to be them, I don't think. Probably quite successful in many ways, but with great difficulty over that time. Now, when I look at this chart, I see that by progression, their moon about 2.5 months ago left Cancer, where it was kind of feeling all of that pressure, and just went into Aquarius. There looks like there's some big changes. Michael didn't ask about them, but big changes in their life over the next 2 months, like right now and through the next 2 months, as the progressed moon conjuncts Uranus and the progressed moon opposes Pluto. And that can mean, major changes it could be a move, it could be shifting of kind of the center of an identity where one job's been working with you for a long time. Where do you go where do you go into the next? And that it will feel pretty unsettled, or it could be someone in your life, new people come in, old people leave, a changing of the guard in your life during that time. So kind of be kind to yourself in this process. I would say do not jump to conclusions about anything. Move it forward in a steady way while, Mars is sitting right now this week right on this combination, so it may have already been triggered off. But to kind of look at, are you where you want to be? If you want to make a change, this is a good time to do it. The clutch is in, but just make sure it's not that you are leaving something so much as going to what's better for you. Making sure that Capricorn lineup needs a mountaintop to climb towards. Doesn't have to get there overnight, but has to feel like what you do next will lead you closer to where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, and down the line. So be kind to yourself in this process and find a way. It looks like you're the kind of competent person that everybody would love on their side. So we suggest that and work for you on that. The next one, I'm sure they signed it with an X, which probably could have been a kiss, or it could have been a question. It could have been the name that they choose to use for that. And I wanted to say that they have this chart. I'm pulling up the notes on them, and they asked. Said the industry you've been working in for years has changed dramatically and is not kind to many due to age, technology, and salary expectations. They have hit a wall and feel like they must start from scratch, maybe in a new field, because they no longer feel aligned with what they did. Not that I'm getting hired anyway. Although it's hard for me to leave that career behind, I know transformation is trouble. And recently spoke about draconic charts, and I tried checking it out, but I don't have a clear understanding. I'm going to let Anne talk about draconic charts. Draconic charts start with where the dragon, the head and the tail of the dragon, your nodes. It's a nodal chart, and it talks about where you're going. And it is a powerful system. I don't think it oversees what we do with transits and progressions. So we look at this person's chart and we see, that the planets are sitting right in their 10th house right now, talking to their chart. But they've had, with the sun in Aquarius and the moon in Taurus, both fixed signs, they don't necessarily like change. So the universe often uses a crowbar when we're going through something if we really don't like change. Neptune and Saturn have been all this winter squaring her Mars, and that can make it very hard to know where you're going, what you want, what's going to happen next. So with that push with the Neptune, that's clearing. You begin to have a clearer picture about what you want next as Saturn and Neptune get off your Mars. And that Neptune leaves next week. Saturn will be in mid-February, and Uranus heads into Gemini in coming up. If it's in a field that's being affected by AI, and it looks like you've got some really good technical ability, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was, that it is, yes, it's time to change and do something completely different. Now, when we look at your it, and feel free to ignore me if you get a job in the meantime that's in your field. But I see your progressed Sun and Venus have been right on your Chiron, that you're going through something now that you're learning from your own experience about things that other people might need. There may be something about helping people in their life transition, in their process. Chiron is highly activating. Your progressed moon is going to be in Taurus in another month, and in 3 months, it comes into your first house. It's been in your 12th house for about 2.5 years. It's hard to feel seen when the moon is in your 12th house. Great time to do inner work, great time to, ask good questions, but it can be hard to feel seen. So I just want to support you on that process. People seem to like you. You're good at working in groups. You're good at getting teams working together. You're good at helping them follow through. You intuit what's going on with the people. So I would put you in HR or in project management where you're managing the team rather than, the technical end of it with that lineup of planets in Aquarius. Your progressed moon is leaving, you've been also, wanting to be, normally you're not quite so independent, or you're always independent on the inside. You may not have been big with that Mars in Sagittarius, but with that moon in Taurus, it's you're independent but don't want to rock the boat. Independent but want security. That progressed moon is going to go into Taurus, helping you get a bit more security, but help you feel more seen in about 3 months. So I have a lot of hope for this chart. And I want you to spend some time thinking, what are you learning now through your process that will help you, and when your card's activated, help you help others? That this is a chart that wants to be of service. It's not particularly money oriented with Saturn in the second house and Neptune up there in the eighth. It's like when you help others, you make money. When you help others, you get security. When you help the group manifest, you help a group do what it needs to do. When you help the group work together and make things happen with your Sun in Aquarius in the 11th house. And Venus, your Venus in Aquarius has Jupiter, your progressed Jupiter sitting right on it, and it will have all these planets coming up to your Venus, activating your ability to help groups work through process. So I would say look at how do you support people in life transition? How do you support people that are there's going to be a huge number of people looking for new jobs and new employment in the next couple of years. And as uh, Uranus heads into Gemini and trines Pluto, they're changing the world together. And as they do that, they're going to be talking to your Pluto in the 6th house of employment. So I do think that you're learning something as you're a bit ahead of this curve, how to help people that are turning their life around, that are changing their fields, that have to reinvent themselves. Notice what works. Try everything. Notice what works. Don't expect people to really see you at the moment, but they will soon. You just about a year ago, 15 months ago, you had a progressed lunar new moon and began a new 30-year cycle that will just be coming into visibility over the next over this spring. So good luck with that, and I feel excellent about this part of the process. And so this week, we're going to come back to the Neptune. I want you to keep an eye on what's going on in the world as Neptune heads into Aries next week. And throughout this week, how do you strengthen your Aquarius? How do you strengthen your community? Keep an eye on what's going on in the big picture. But remember, all those planets looking out, we can miss some of the signals close to home. So make sure that you make the effort to find out how to keep nourishing those relationships that support you, because we can be so busy talking about politics or worrying about the news or thinking about our job that we forget to strengthen those relationships that actually will help us make through the changes. So I just support that, and that you kind of keep an eye on that and keep moving forward with that. And I wish you all well. Deep breath. Feel this community. The astrological community really are eccentric people, but they tend to be here for each other with acceptance and with a metaphysical perspective that's not saying this is why you're going through it, but how can you use this so it serve your soul purpose in the long run? We always have free will and choice. Take care, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.